you're presupposing that there's already such big problems that because of racial integration that we should shut all immigration down.
Okay, so quick question for you. Would you say that racial tensions in America are better or worse than in 1980?
Are these racial
just
tensions?
Off the top of your head. Just off the top of your head, off of
in
what
the
you
1980s?
see what's going on? Yeah, 1980s,
I would say
2000s. Is better or worse?
In the
Racial tensions in
1980s,
America.
yeah, that's a bad decade for you to choose, buddy, because racial tensions were pretty bad then.
It's worse than
but
now?
I don't know. I wasn't alive during the 80s, but I am alive now, and I was alive during the 2000s. They're probably not as bad as the 2000s, but during the 2010s through now, yeah, they've been pretty bad, right? And even then, the argument that you're putting forward here has no merit because you're talking about the African American community in terms of Black Lives Matter, who are not immigrants. These are people that have lived here for a very, very long time. Why would I impose higher prices and worse work conditions on our native population simply because of the perception that perhaps we need to spend a little bit more time integrating people into our society when it hasn't been demonstrated that it is actually damaging our society in the first place?
The very first thing was that you brought things to a racial perspective when that's, I didn't bring anything like that up at all. I may have,
the debate is about America first, right?
And
if I'm going to talk about America first.
So you think that America is inherently, there's a racial element to what Americans are? Is that what
we're
you're
talking about?
saying?
America first, the political ideology, right?
Yes.
America first. If America first, the Groyper-esque
perspective and
right.
political belief system, I just sort of laid out
heavily
what we believe.
leans on.
Wait, hold on, one at a time.
Yeah, sorry. It heavily leans on anti-immigration, heavily leans on isolationism, heavily leans on a whole bunch of things that don't actually put the American people first, right? So, in that case, I actually don't think that what you're saying is all that honest whatsoever.
First up, we have Sanzel. How are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty good.
Okay, yeah. You want to introduce yourself, tell people where you lie in the political spectrum, and where people can find you.
Sure. I'm Sansol. I do politics and gaming on twitch.tv/Sansol. I am a left-leaning individual, probably a little bit further left than a social democrat, but maybe not so far left as, say, like a tanky. Not exactly sure exactly where I fall, but that's about where I fall.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Mayo. How are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. So, yeah, you want to introduce yourself and tell people where you lie in the political spectrum?
Sure. Yeah, I would say my most important political priorities are cultural, social conservatism. And other than that, as far as the economics go, it's, whatever serves the interests of the American people is really what I'm most interested in. Whichever way that goes, depending on the specific policies.
Okay, thank you. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Each person can give an opening statement, can be as little as 1 minute, no longer than 5, about the topic and your stance. After that, we will open up the floor. After the debate is over, we will go into the Q&A. If you guys have any questions, tag politically provoked, who your question is addressed to, and we should be able to get to them all. We'll do closing statements and final thoughts after the Q&A. Since this is your ideology, Maya, why don't you get us started with opening statements?
Sure. Sounds good to me. The America First movement, but I think a good place to start with this is, what is America, right? If we're putting America first, what would that be? Well, put simply, I'd say America is a particular people in a particular place, and that's us. We are the Americans, and America is the home of the Americans, as Nick Fuentes famously said. America is one people, one nation on this continent, forged over hundreds of years by shared experiences, descended from an English cultural framework and the influence of European civilization. And so putting America first means putting the well-being and the interest and the good of the flesh and blood American people in this place first, every time, always, before everything else, and not one single exception. That's a quote from Nick Fuentes. And I think I couldn't sum it up better than that. It's about putting the American people first and, defining the American people It's the people who are here in America. And it's really that simple.
All right, thank you. Sanzo, what do you think America First is?
America First. So I think that he summed up pretty well what they think America First is, but it seems to me that America First is basically an amalgamation of feels over reals on what they want to see happen in America. So generally speaking, people that are America First, they say that they want to put all Americans first, but they also don't want to increase any kind of immigration that might help with the greater economic achievement of the United States. They don't want to do anything in terms of foreign policy that might help the American people. It seems like really what their ideology boils down to is preserving America as a white nation for white people. Depending on who you're talking to, white might have a different definition. So I guess we're gonna have to get into that. But yeah, I don't really see much of a difference between the America First Nick Fuentes groypers and like modern fascist movements or anything like that. It's just different labels for the same thing.
All right, so we can open up the floor.
Yeah. Well, if I can respond to that,
Sure,
I'd say, well, I'm I don't know if I'm surprised or not that before I could even get out of the gate with opening statements, we've already gone into claims of racism and white nationalism. And it's funny how, you can't talk about, putting American families first before big corporations, foreign interests, the ideologies that like socialism and capitalism, these systems, it's putting anything first before the American people. To be able to question that, I think is important. And it's interesting to me that you can't even begin a discussion about just simply that topic without name calling and slanderous attacks and and of course these are with heavily loaded, politically loaded terms, which are trying to get people deplatformed, ban, make it so that we can't have jobs. Everyone noticed Sansol can freely show his face and advocate for communism right now here, but me being in favor of the American people, that's something I have to be more worried about because of these tactics which they use. So, it's unfortunate that we can't really have good faith discussions about this topic, but I'm looking forward to it either way.
Oh, well, what exactly did you take exception to in my opening statement? What do you think that I said that was misrepresentative of what you believe? What do you think was just a pure ad hominem attack with no basis?
Well, I mean, the very first thing was that you brought things to a racial perspective when that's I didn't bring anything like that up at all. I may have
the debate is about America first, right? And if I'm going to talk about America first,
so you think that America is inherently there's a racial element to what Americans are? Is that what
we're
you're
talking
saying?
about? America first, the political ideology, right?
Yes.
America
and
first. If America first, the Groiper-esque
perspective and
right.
political belief system, I just sort of laid out what we believe.
Leans on.
Wait, one at a time.
Yeah, sorry. It heavily leans on anti-immigration, heavily leans on isolationism, heavily leans on a whole bunch of things that don't actually put the American people first, right? So, in that case, I actually don't think that what you're saying is all that honest whatsoever.
Sure. So what's one way that America First movement wouldn't put Americans first?
Okay, so say for instance, immigration. What's your stance on that? Should we cut all of it out? Should we cut out some of it? Should we only allow immigration from certain areas of the world? What is it?
Oh yeah, well right now I'd say that we've had so much mass immigration, more than we've ever had in the history of this country by far in the past 60 years, that it's essentially at this point time to cut off the flow, as has always been done in history, in order to give time for an assimilation period for the immigrants who have come in, so that we can all get this, so they can assimilate to the American culture, and that what America is doesn't fundamentally change. On top of that, the demographic changes that the mass immigration represents, again, you don't have to be some sort of a white nationalist or a racist. in order to acknowledge the fact that a certain group of people going from 90% of the population to, around 40% of the population between 1960 and 2040 is, represents a significant change in this nation. And it's not just, all change isn't just inherently good, right? So we have
well,
to
all
debate.
change is not also inherently bad.
That's
right?
absolutely true, right? And so we
really quick,
should
I
be
just
able to
want
talk about whether there are consequences, pros and cons to this.
Yeah, of course, and that's what we're going to do right now. So when we talk about the immigrants need to need time to assimilate, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, if you have immigrants from a foreign country with a foreign culture that, they don't speak, the most extreme examples, they don't speak the same language as us, right? If you have someone who comes over from, I don't know, let's say Russia, and they speak Russian rather than English, they're going to have a tough time communicating with people. Let's say we have
So wait, really quick, just on that
people.
point, that point right there, 1 point at a time. So do you think that a person coming here from Russia is able to pass the American citizenship test without speaking English?
I'm not sure what the American citizen test entails entirely, but I would say that speaking English is an integral part of being an American, because that
sure,
is.
But if
I
they
mean,
can't
this
speak
is
English and they can't pass the citizenship test, right?
Sure, I would imagine so. However, there are a lot of people who are coming over here who are getting citizenship who don't speak English, so I'm not sure how that plays out exactly, but it just turns out that way. Now, real quick,
So what
so I laid
percentage
out
of
what I
wait,
think.
Wait,
So I
let me
laid out
respond.
what I
Yeah,
think
let me
America
respond.
first means.
Sure.
I'm curious to you what you think American first means.
Well,
If
I've
we're,
already-
if we're
yeah.
coming from the same places, you think that it's basically just a white nationalist thing, and that's all there is to it, and that America first wants to, hurt the American people for some reason, or I'm curious what.
Well, I don't know what part do you not understand about my stance on America first, because I've already said what my stance on America first is, and that what my stance on immigration is, right? My stance on immigration is that immigration is a good thing for the American people because it helps us grow our economy bigger. It helps us. It helps our culture move forward. It helps our population sustain itself. It seems like
When you say
there's
the culture moves forward towards where? What do you mean by that?
who knows
Forward
where
away
it moves.
from what our culture used to be?
Well, that's how when you move in one direction, that's what happens with culture. Sure.
So what in your mind makes it so absolute that any changes to our culture would necessarily be good ones?
I didn't say that it would be good or bad. I said that it would move us forward, right? Because culture is not something that is
so it could be moving us
static
forward
thing.
in a bad direction, right?
Right, but you would have to demonstrate that it does.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So just we both agree then that that mass immigration does come with major cultural changes, which may be good or bad, and that's something that needs to be discussed, right?
Right, that's what we're here to discuss. That's what I'm trying to. That's what
Just
I'm trying to
making
get
sure.
at.
Hey, I'm taking a step by step with you here.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm trying to
So
figure out what
if
our
we're-
topic is right now.
So if we're moving culture forward with immigration, right? What is the goal? What are we moving forward to if we're advocating for mass immigration and more of it?
I don't know exactly what you mean by what are we moving towards. I don't think that there is a goal with culture to move it towards something. I just think that when we have things like more people in our country that are all able to have different ideas and are all able to engage in the culture inevitably moves forward.
So, I mean, is it just more people no matter what forever? If we have to stack people, 20
Unless you want
inside
the
of one story.
unless you want the American population to dip down, then yeah, we're going to want there to be more people in the United States.
Just more forever, 3 billion, 8 trillion people. Is there no limit on the maximum number of people that you would want in this country? Or would you just want to keep moving forward, changing the culture for no reason?
What do you mean?
that you
Like
give it at all?
even if I was to extend this to what you believe, right? Do you think that we should limit how many human beings are in the United States, even if we had the perfect Groyper world? What do you mean?
Yes.
Oh, so you're in favor of limiting birth rates in the United States in order to maintain a certain number of people in the United States?
Not limiting birth rates, but limiting immigration specifically. You
Well,
can
even
tell
if you,
over
well,
time.
no, but
hold
you
on,
our
said,
Santo, hold on. Let him finish. Go ahead.
Yeah, so our birth rates right now, we're actually not, most of American demographics are not even meeting their replacement rate. So we're in no danger of having too many people born that our country's population is skyrocketing. Not even close. What's
so,
actually happening is that the American people are dying out, and that this is a decaying, dying population, and we're replacing the dying populations with foreign immigrants. And I don't think that's necessarily the best policy for the American people.
okay, so you're saying we have a decaying, dying population, and we shouldn't replace it with people that are from outside the country. So do we allow the United States to just decay into, having 5 people in the country because that's just what the birth rate is?
Oh yeah, no, exactly. So what America First, what we want is to promote families. We want to. I mean, that's one of the first things that you can do is have state propaganda campaigns about instead of women should be in the workforce, everyone should have careers. The propaganda should be about starting families and about how having children is one of the most rewarding things that there is in life. Leaving a legacy behind like that is something that no career can offer you. And I think that if there were, just campaigns, media campaigns that said things like this, that more people would go towards that. And it turns out that I heard Denmark did something like that just recently, and it worked. Their birth rates have risen since then, just off of that alone. So I would advocate for policies which promote American families and
Okay.
promote the health and well-being of American families.
Sure. But even at that, right, if we're talking about here and now, why are you so concerned with the American population as it is right now, increasing its birth rate rather than having people come into the country?
Um, it, okay, well, I think that the answer to that is it seems pretty obvious. Um, if we let our birth rate get down below its replacement rate, we're a dying civilization. We're a dying population. That's what it is.
Right.
And so allowing that, I don't think that that's a good thing for the American people. If I were in charge and I
Right,
heard,
but
hey,
the question
everyone's
is,
dying out, I wouldn't say, well, we're doing a service to the people that we're in control of.
right, but you're
Right?
going in
And
circles because you're going to answer me that we should just increase the birth rates. But why are you more concerned with increasing the birth rates rather than just allowing people to become naturalized citizens?
Oh, and that's what America First is all about. I believe that it's the role of the American state, just like any government from any nation, to put their people first above every other group.
Yeah, but
And
if someone
there
immigrates
isn't a
here,
group,
they become one of us.
if the people who are already Americans right now are dying out, replacing them as economic units with immigrants is not servicing them. It's not good for the American people.
Why?
Right? Well, because they'll be dead and gone. That's not a good thing in my worldview.
So you're saying that by allowing people to come into this country, we're killing the naturalized citizens or the natural-born citizens here?
Not at all. No, I'm saying that the people are already dying, and so
Right.
rather than replacing them, the better policy is to increase the population rather than replace it.
That's my argument too, but I say we can do it through immigration, and that's totally a fine thing, and it helps
That
everyone
would be-
economic. Well, hold
that
on,
would
and it
be
helps
replacement.
because I say I ask you one question, and you go on a 5-minute diatribe. But I say that if we increase immigration, right, or if we keep immigration at the way that it is now, or increase it, right, we increase the available labor pool, we increase the economic output of the United States. That allows for the prices in this country to go down, so that people can afford more goods and more services. They can purchase more commodities, and that leads to a better living environment for everyone involved.
Okay, I have a hypothetical for you. This is something that's not
But
real.
wait, really
It's
quick, before
just-
you give me a
Go
hypothetical, I
ahead.
really want you to answer that question.
Which one?
The question of why would you want to get rid of all immigration and support the increasing the birth rates.
Right.
Because you keep on just saying because I want to increase the birth rates, but
several times.
no, but the
reason
answer that you give really quick. So the answer that you give is I want to shut down immigration so that I can increase the birth rate of the natural born citizens that are already here.
Unrelated. Those two are unrelated.
Okay,
right?
so why is bringing immigrants in bad?
Well, because it represents a major demographic change, and it's being brought in as a solution to the population replacement rate problem, and so that's an issue. That the fact that the people
really quick,
are
one
not
point at a
having
time.
children.
1 point at a time, really quick.
Okay.
So demographic change. Why is that a bad thing?
Why is that a bad thing?
Yes.
Well, it represents a major change, first of all, okay? And so you have to acknowledge that any given people don't necessarily, they're living a certain way, and they've been living a certain way for a long time, and it's not necessarily in their best interest to bring a drastic change in one generation, bringing them from 90% of a population to 40% of a population, and expecting like that. There's no problem with that at all. Right. If that's what's happening, I wouldn't say that the American government is doing a service to its citizens and taking care of them.
Wait.
Right. So here's my hypothetical. Wait.
But you're just like saying vague things, but not actually giving an answer. You're not answering why it's a bad thing.
Let me illustrate my point with this hypothetical. Okay. If you heard, this is not real data. This is I'm made up just for a thought experiment. If you heard that African Americans were the state of African American families was so bad right now that in one generation by 2040 there wouldn't be any more. Would you be okay with that and say, well, if we just bring in more immigrants from Poland, well, we don't need the African Americans and we'll have economic benefits anyway? Is that something you'd advocate for?
So you're saying that in one generation, all black people are going to die out?
In the thought experiment, hypothetical, yes.
Well, I guess it would have to. I would have to see what the reason is. Like that. This is.
Let's say the reason is they're not starting families and they're not having children anymore.
Well, then, yeah, I wouldn't force anyone to have families, right?
So you would say that the moral action of the American government would be to let them all die out and replace them with Polish people or whatever. Is that what you're saying?
Well, if people did not want to start families, I would not force them to start families.
Well, nobody's talking about forcing anybody to do anything.
Even if we were to take your route, right, and start heavily propagandizing, right, then I would still say, yeah, we can help supplement the population with immigrants, and those immigrants will come in and create a better world or a better country for everyone involved.
Do you think that Polish immigrants who have lived in Poland their entire lives are going to have the same amount of social cohesion with Americans as African Americans do, or any other ethnic group of Americans? Do you think that there will be no social cohesion cost to doing that at all?
In the short term, it seems like there is some form of social cohesion that is
okay. So bringing about,
but however, really quick, right? Because wait, hold on, you don't wait. Why won't you let me finish my answer, my bud? You get to talk so much. All right. So right. Yeah. So while there is a short term social disruption, right? We don't know in this hypothetical to what degree that is, right? But in the medium to long term, the study is the data is just unequivocally in the favor of multiculturalism, because people have to sit there, they have to learn from each other, and when they learn from each other, they actually bond closer together. So in the medium and long term, yeah, multiculturalism is much better for social cohesion than this homogenous, weird ethno-state that people like to advocate for.
Okay, yeah, so I'm curious about which data you're referring to, which says that multiculturalism is objectively better because people learn from each other.
Sure, give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Let me scroll up right here.
And I'm curious if you believe that has no effect on other factors. Again, like
well, you asked me about right. You asked me about social cohesion, right?
Well, people learning from each other is kind of a different issue than whether people get along,
Well, the
right? If you
reason,
let's
okay,
say
so
that you
really quick,
bring
I can explain like the thought process that this goes down, right? So basically, and we can see this in the U.S. military, where people in the military, let me see here, Da-ga-da-ga-da. People in the military have, on average, more interracial friends, right? So like a white guy will have a Hispanic friend and a black friend and an Asian friend, right? They'll have more friends of more races because they are all having to work together in units because they are all in life or death situations. And so these situations, right, and all these people all being close together for long periods of time leads to them being bonding even stronger than if they, were not together at all.
Okay, so a specific example like the military, where people are forced into conditions where they form, these types of bonds is I would say different from the general population, right? And especially them being forced together, you're kind of making an inherent or an embedded statement about forced integration, which was a government policy, which was incredibly unpopular when it was put into place. You have the school busings, for example.
So
Where
forced integration was a bad
there was
thing that led to negative long-term consequences for the United
there was
States.
a lot of social cohesion at the time in the very beginning, at the very least in the short term. We can agree to
And
that.
now we have a
right?
stronger nation after we realized that having segregation in our country is a morally
think-
bad thing. We then forced
So-
everyone to integrate, and
Well,
now
so
we have
where
an
I'm
even
going with this-
stronger nation because
So where I'm
everyone
going
is.
with this is
But
that
no,
the people
your
well,
underlying
hold on
premise
here.
is
Too much
flawed.
change.
Let him finish.
Where I'm going with this is too much change too quickly can bring about disaster, even if there would be long-term benefits in the long run, even if it could all work out if we did things incrementally. Taking too many leaps and bounds at once could lead to disaster, given that there are short-term negative effects, right?
Sure, but you would have to demonstrate that the way that we go through our immigration policy now leads to substantial enough social cohesion disruption that we should shut it all down and let everyone all integrate together now, right? You're presupposing that there's already such big problems that because of racial integration that we should shut all immigration down.
So quick question for you. Would you say that racial tensions in America are better or worse than in 1980?
Are these
No,
racial
just
tensions?
off the top of your head. Just off the top of your head, off of
In
what
the
you see
1980s?
every day, what's going on, yeah.
I would say
2000s is better or worse?
in the
Racial tensions in
1980s,
America.
yeah, that's a bad decade for you to choose, buddy, because racial tensions were pretty bad
think it's
then.
worse than
but
now?
I don't know. I wasn't alive during the 80s, but I am alive now, and I was alive during the 2000s. They're probably not as bad as the 2000s, but during the 2010s through now, yeah, they've been pretty bad, right? And even then, the argument that you're putting forward here has no merit because you're talking about the African American community in terms of Black Lives Matter, who are not immigrants. These are people that have lived here for a very, very long time. They have had adequate time to not only assimilate into our culture, but to affect it over the long term by contributing to our culture through music and food and art and sport and all of these different things. Right? So this is a completely stupid argument for you to bring
this
up.
population to die out and replacing them with immigrants from other countries, with foreigners, would probably not be in their best interest or the American people, the rest of the American people's best interest, right?
Wait, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? Are you appealing to your ultra unlikely hypothetical in order to make the point that our country is in shambles right now?
Well, so I mean, yes, exact. That's exactly what I'm doing because
Okay.
it turns out that there are demographics of Americans.
So
who
are black people dying out in the
rates
U.S.
are
right now?
So low. No, white people are actually. It's just it doesn't matter what race the people are that are dying out. It's any American ethnic group of people who have been here and contributed to the culture and assimilated, like you've talked about
Well,
for
why don't we just
generations.
bring in-
You just
well-
discussed how important that was.
Well, I didn't discuss how important it was. I'm saying that
I mean,
you're not arguing. Hold on, really quick,
America.
right? You're making arguments that don't logically follow whatsoever. That's what I'm pointing out. I'm not saying whether these things are necessarily good or bad, or that they're, even worth considering in terms of what we're talking about right now. All like you're making disconnected points, right?
Not exactly. So here's what I'll connect the points for you.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So it turns out white Americans and Black Americans are both under their replacement rates right now. So given enough time, they will die out if something doesn't change, right?
Okay.
Okay. And so I would assert that that's a bad thing.
I mean, possibly, yeah.
Okay, cool. And so I would also assert, following from that, building off of that enacting programs to stop that bad thing from happening would be better than finding another economic solution to the problem.
Right, like immigration is a
That
good
would
way
be
to make sure.
economic solution to the problem.
It is both an
solving it.
economic solution and it's also a solution to the declining birth rate. Yeah.
So how is bringing in immigrants from another country a solution to the declining birth rate of African Americans or white Americans?
Because we have a falling population.
Oh, right, but that doesn't help those demographics that we're talking about right now.
Yes, it does. Because when we're talking about the benefits of immigration, it's just wholly like economically sound. It helps every single group of people in the United States out.
So it's funny that you say that because actually it doesn't. Most of the benefits accrued actually go to the capital and the immigrants themselves at the cost of the native or the working class Americans who have already been here.
In what way?
So that's So essentially, there's I'll get a study for you. I know you guys love.
I'm ready for it, buddy.
Yeah, there's a study by George Borjas.
Okay.
It's called Immigration and Economic Growth. And on page...
Before we go any further, before you embarrass yourself, all right?
Sure.
What was Borjas's conclusion?
Borjas's conclusion, there were a couple conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
But the conclusion right here, which I'm discussing in page 14 and 15 of the paper...
Wait, why are you not going to take all of his conclusions, all of the findings? Why are you going to pick one of the conclusions?
Is there a reason why you're scared of hearing a sentence from this study?
Oh no, I'm just wondering if you actually know what it is.
I'm wondering why you're filibustering here on a study which you've asked for the data from.
Yeah, go ahead, read it, buddy.
Okay, good. Just making sure we're on
Also,
the same.
can you link it?
Yeah.
Cool.
There it is. It'll be the last paragraph on page 14 and the beginning of page 15. Figure 2 shows that immigration redistributes income from labor to capital. Native-born workers lose about 2.9% of GDP, while native-owned capital gains about 3.2% of GDP. So the 19.5 trillion GDP implies that the workers lose 567 billion, while employers gain 623 billion. The small surplus of 56 billion masks a sizable redistribution from workers to the users of immigrant labor. And then it goes on to get into more numbers, and it says that almost all of this increase of the immigration surplus goes to the immigrants themselves as payments for their services. So even on an economic level, this is not better for the Native American population, the people who are already here. So essentially what you're saying is that the people who are here are dying out and you're okay with that, replacing them. They're losing money and you're okay with that, replacing them. And then you're helping the capital, which I would think as a socialist you'd be against, and you're helping the foreign immigrants who are coming here and replacing
really quick,
populations who are dying out.
I love how you're really moralizing all of this. Very fun, very, very cool. But this is the fun part. Like one paragraph later, right? There's this sentence. In the end, immigration does not alter the price of labor or the returns to capital, and natives neither gain nor lose from immigration. In the long run, the immigration surplus must be zero. So even your dunk argument
It-
study.
it- I'm-
No,
I'm
hold
sorry,
on,
but
hold
that
on. I let
doesn't
you talk. I let you
contradict
talk.
what
I
it
let you
says.
talk. Even in the end, even your dunk data that you just throwed at me, right? Borjas himself does not think that immigration is a bad thing. In fact, the findings that Borjas finds is that while it's there are some amounts of loss for the high school dropout education level of the native-born workers, it's something like 2%. But this can be rectified, even Borjas says, through social programs, which could be paid into by, guess what, immigrants coming into the country, helping by increasing the economic productivity of the country and paying into the tax system and, helping out those workers. And this 2% loss in income, it doesn't last long term.
Yeah, and so that's what you were talking about, this dunk, what you were talking about. I read the rest of that paragraph, which you conveniently left out. And it even gets into it. And it gets into it in the abstract in the very beginning, and it says that this will, in a long-term effect, things eventually seem to level out in terms of the price of labor and the effects. However, on a short-term basis, there are negative effects to the, actually it says the long-term effects still have to be measured, and there are so many factors it's difficult to even figure out.
So
however, the short-term effects, however, the short-term effects are definite, and it's what I said, and he wouldn't have put it in the study if it wasn't true.
Right, and the short-term effects, I concede, right? Even like this is hold on really quick. This is the study really quick. Yeah. This is the study that people that are anti-immigration point towards for their dunk.
Well, and there's a reason for that.
Right, there is a reason for it because this is the most anti-immigration economic argument that you can find, and even the most anti-economic or anti-immigration economic paper that you can find shows that there's barely any damage to the native population in terms of their income, right? And they concede in that same study that it can be rectified simply with just a little bit of social programs that will be paid into by the immigrant class. Yes.
That's not what it says at all. What it says is
100%
that in the long term, in the very long term, and we're talking decades here. Okay,
right,
in the long term,
right? No,
we have things could level out. However, when you have mass immigration at such a high level like we have now,
we're not. Wait, hold on. You're jumping. You're jumping all over the place, buddy.
How is that a jump? We went from immigration to mass immigration.
You're jumping from the economic argument. Trouble here? All right. We're talking about immigration. Does it damage the native population? Does it or does it not?
In the short term, yes.
Okay. And what's the next part of that?
The next part of that is that if we have mass immigration in the short term, the effects are drastically bad. You see how that's...
Wait,
am I jumping?
Where does it say that?
Well, it's extrapolating the point from the principle.
Oh, so you actually have no data that shows that this would be the case. You're just
the data says that exactly. There are mathematical equations in here which prove what he says, which is that in the short term, the more immigration you have, the more that the money is moved from labor to capital, and the more that the native-born workers lose out, and that the immigrants and the capital, the corporations gain. And so the more it logically follows that the more immigration you have, the more drastic these effects are. Obviously.
All right.
And so if you have too much immigration,
you're appealing to something that's not happening. So why are you worried about this?
I'm appealing to something that's been happening for the past 60 years. That's exactly our point. We've had 60 million immigrants in the past 60 years. There's only like 340 million
people here. Our immigrant population is the amount of people that are immigrating into the United States is going down.
Well, and that's great, and you know what, we want that to go down.
So why are you saying that it's going up? That we have hundreds of millions of people that are coming into this country all the time.
For the past 20 years or so, at least, an average of over 1 million immigrants per year entering this country, and that's just legally. Okay. We've had 60 million immigrants in the past 60 years in America. That's a lot for a population of 340 million. That's a significant percentage of foreign.
1 million. Wait, hold on, really quick. Can you say that again?
It's around 1 million per year.
A
something
million
like that.
per year. What percent
Yeah.
of the population?
I don't. So do we have to do the math here? Let me pull up a calculator. Because 60 million people out of 240 million people.
Wait, I thought that you
is
said a
significant
million per
amount,
year.
or 340. Yes, 60 million in the past 60 years, roughly.
Okay, and
That's
so
a lot.
if we have
It's like
350, if we have
25% of the
350 or 360 million people, right? That's less than a percent added to the native population every single year.
Okay, and added up
Why is
over
this?
60
How
years,
is this
and it's
mass
25%
information? Wait,
of the
hold on.
population.
How is this mass immigration?
25% of the population over 60 years. That is a significant change in one generation, man. Would you dispute that? That 25% of the population changing who it is from people to different countries with completely different cultures, who a lot of them don't even speak English. You would say that there's nothing.
If we've replaced
significant about
25%
that?
of our population with people that don't speak English, can you demonstrate to me that that's something that we have in the United States right now?
No, I would say that a lot of the immigrants are not speaking English, and you can tell.
Okay,
they're
what is a
moving into
lot?
their own communities.
No, hold on. What is a lot?
Are you denying that this is a phenomenon?
I don't. If it's something
denying
that
that
happens,
there
I don't think that the amount of people that are coming into this country that don't speak English are as large a number as you are trying to make it out to be. No.
Okay, so fine. We'll drop that point since I don't have data on that. I thought
Okay,
we
so
could
we're going to drop
sort
the
of talk
point that
about real-world
the
experience
social
here,
cohesion that we would
things
lose.
that
Hold on, really
everyone knows.
quick. I just want to
Go
make
ahead.
this clear. We're dropping the point that because people don't speak English, right? We're not going to use that in terms of any kind of social cohesion. All right, going forward.
Well, no, not exactly. Because the
Wait,
fact
now
is
we are
that
going to
there
use it.
People coming here who don't speak English, right? And that represents a problem. And I would say that speaking English should be a prerequisite for being a citizen here. And that one of the first things that you learn in international relations class is that one of the most core and fundamental parts of what being a nation is.
I don't disagree with that. I think that it would be nice for everyone to speak the same language in our
Not
country,
just
right?
nice,
No.
required.
I don't know about required. It would
For
probably
a
be something
nation?
that I would have to think about if we wanted to make that a rule. But
Sure,
at the
what's a
same
nation
time,
then?
right? We also
What's a
don't see
nation?
that our current immigration system is allowing so many people into our country that don't speak English that it is a problem that is in any way damaging our society.
There's a social cohesion aspect to it and cultural changes which are not insignificant.
Right, but you keep on like alluding to this vague sense of people not speaking English and being so outside of the culture that they can't assimilate whatsoever. But in order for people to join this,
It's not that they can't assimilate. It's not that they can't assimilate. It's that they have a different culture they were raised with, right? It's if you take in somebody from China or Somalia or Peru or Poland or Russia and you bring them into America, they're not just, eating apple pie and whistling Dixie, right?
why not?
Is that something you dispute?
I'm asking you.
Think that you can take someone from anywhere and they ought to automatically have our culture?
I think that anyone that we bring into America and they get naturalized as a citizen, they become an American.
So you think that legal documents are the only thing which make up a nation?
They are the only thing that makes up. Well, let me think about that. Are legal documents the only thing that make up the people of a nation?
I'm sorry?
Do you not recognize the fact that in order to gain citizenship, you have to pass a citizenship test, and that is showing that you share the same values as we do?
Oh, sure.
In terms of democracy, in terms of
absolutely,
liberty.
that has nothing to do with the same values. No, absolutely not. Especially
Then I don't
when you
care
talk
about whatever
things like
cultural things that they
amnesty.
bring in if they're not changing our core values of liberty and equality
They are
and
changing our
democracy.
core- those are not their core values.
Wait, but you
man.
said that they wait. But I already said
We're
and
taking
you
in
agreed.
people from
Wait, you
cultures that
agreed.
don't have core values of liberty.
But wait,
Wait.
you agreed with me that in order to get to become a naturalized citizen, you have to pass a citizenship test, and that is a test to show that you share the same values as us.
Sure, that's the legal documents, but I'm talking about what a nation is and what a culture,
Right.
what a people are. And you're saying, well, as long as they share all our core values, they don't, man. We're taking in people from cultures that are completely different from us.
But you're agreeing with me that in order for them to gain citizenship and become a naturalized citizen, they have to pass this test, and that shows that they have the same
According
core
to the
values
current
as-
immigration policies, which we're advocating for changing. Yes.
So why do we care if they wait? So wait, do they
Exactly my
okay,
point.
really quick. This just yes or no. Do they or do they not share the same core values as us?
No. Well, I mean, it depends on where they come from, but pretty much nobody does.
Then how do they
Americans
pass
are a
in that
specific
case?
group
Then
of
how do
people.
they pass the American citizenship test?
Because a lot of the questions on those tests are facts and logic. They're like, who were the presidents? It's trivia questions, man. It's who are the presidents? What are the laws? You know, what can you do and not do in this country? Things like that. That doesn't mean that they're all, you know, eating apple pie again and whistling Dixie. It's not that simple, especially
Wait a
when you
second.
talk about the cases of amnesty, which is something I'd really like you to address. Because
If they
they're not
accept
taking-
if they accept what the laws are and they know what
they're
the
just making
laws are.
people citizens because they
Wait,
walked
hold
across
on,
the
hold
border.
on. So you're saying
They don't have our values. They don't pursue freedom and liberty and all of that. They come from governments and places where they don't have freedom of religion. Is that something you're okay with?
Wait, if they don't
they
have
get
freedom of
control of our
religion,
government because
right?
they
How are
become
they
the
going to
majority
enact that
demographic.
here?
Hold on, Maya. Go ahead.
What's that? If they don't have freedom of religion,
Yeah,
what?
if they don't have freedom in their country, right? And they don't value freedom in their country. Number one, how do you know that they don't value freedom in their country if their government is the one that is imposing some kind of lack of freedom onto them? Number two,
Who's the
how are they
government made of?
Huh?
Who's the government made of? The people there.
Do you think that every single country in the entire world has the same form of government as us?
No, not at all. What I'm saying
Then why
is
are
that
you asking me that question?
Well, generally speaking, there's the government rules at the consent of the governed, and you see time and time again throughout history that when those fall out of line, a revolution happens, and that happens pretty much in every single case. And so it can be stated pretty solidly that a government is generally
So if-
speaking,
wait, really
except in
quick.
those crazy times, representative
What
of the
crazy
core values
times?
of the people. It could those times of upheaval and revolution, which I
Okay,
just
so if there's people that flee an authoritarian regime, right? Are they inherently authoritarian? Why wouldn't they just stay in their country if they like the authoritarianism?
Well, it's funny because it turns out that most of the immigrants aren't leaving for ideological political reasons like this, especially from
Well,
the
it
third
might be
world.
because they're being
They don't have
oppressed because they don't have freedom, right? Which
It's
they
not
wouldn't
even
like.
necessarily about oppression or freedom or anything like that. It's about economic prosperity. These people want they want economic benefits for themselves, which they see in America, obviously.
Right, because
and
we're
you
the
can't
most
fault it.
powerful nation that the world has ever
Right,
seen.
and you can't fault them for that, for wanting economic benefits for themselves.
Right,
At
and when
the
they
same
come here,
time,
they
they're
increase
not-
everyone else's.
At the same time, these people are not coming here and leaving all their values behind, and they're leaving behind all their cultural and you know all of their political beliefs and anything like that. All they're doing is coming here and saying, "Well, I can make money here," and they're bringing all the rest with them. That's what's happening. They're not fleeing from political regime, largely, by and large, they're not fleeing because they, oh, well, this country doesn't have, this political thing which I want, and so I'm going to go to America and vote for that. They don't think like that. This is not how third world immigrants operate. A lot of them haven't.
So when we
read
had
books.
when we had
just
large
wanna
waves
work.
of immigration in the past, right? Did our government change into the Irish government?
No, and that's
Did
because we
our,
didn't
our
have
wait,
mass
hold on.
immigration.
Did our
We
did
didn't have
our
mass immigration. It's a
that was
totally
massive
different
immigration
example.
for that time? Yeah.
And it wasn't even close to the same percentage. It's not 25% of the population in one
No.
generation.
But you're talking about
Not at all.
you're talking about 60% or 60 million people over 60 million years. We're talking about huge numbers of people from all in one area, right? So if the Irish immigrants came over here and they didn't change our government into the Irish government, right? And they didn't give us a potato famine. If the Italians that came over didn't change us into the Italian government, right? So what single country is coming over here and is giving us so many people that they're going to structurally change the United States away from having the core values of liberty, equality, democracy?
Yeah. So, well, I would say our largest centers of immigration, where they're coming from right now, are Asia and South America, and then Africa. And again, looking at the charts, looking at the studies, I'm not seeing anything like a demographic change like you're trying to characterize the Irish coming to America as here. It's not even close to the mass immigration that's happened today. Like altogether for an assimilation period, which is what we're advocating for. And I don't understand why that's such an issue to you.
I don't understand.
Why you think an assimilation period is such a problem.
Because I don't value that being anything that is worth our time. Why would I damage the wait, hold on, really quick. Really quick.
Go ahead.
All right. Why would I damage the US economy? Why would I impose higher prices and worse work conditions on our native population simply because of the perception that perhaps we need to spend a little bit more time integrating people into our society when it hasn't been demonstrated that it is actually damaging our society in the first place?
Yeah, so I would say that the economic benefits are not the only thing to be taken into account.
Okay, right? And that's why I keep on asking you over and over and over, what is the damage to our society from massive immigration, even from this like mass immigration, even from the let's even stick to like the kind of it that you can actually have data on, right? The immigration that we've received over the past 60 years. What cultural damage have we received from these people that has been outweighed by the economic benefit?
Sure. Well, here's a small, more localized example. Have you seen the recent waves of immigrants coming from California to Texas?
Yes, I live in Texas.
Okay, cool. So you recognize that the immigrants coming just even from California, which is even within our nation, they're voting, they're bringing their cultural values with them to Texas and voting that way and bringing a major change electorally and demographically,
immigrants.
right? Well, I mean, again, it's state to state immigrants. I'm using the term.
It's interstate migration, and even at that, the amount of Californians that are coming over to Texas aren't changing this state from red into blue. It's other demographic changes. Next example.
However,
all right, buddy, because you don't know what you're talking about there.
Would be California used to be a solid red state. Reagan won it 5 or 6 times. Nixon won it 5 or 6 times, and the demographic change from the Latin American population turned it into such a solidly blue state that it's never going to turn red again. And the same thing is now happening with Virginia.
New York used to be a swing state. Was it all of the Mexican immigrants?
Okay, I'm specifically talking about California right now and Virginia as well.
The change in political ideology is a symbol of people ruining our culture?
Well, I wouldn't say ruining. I would say
then why do we care?
It represents a major change, which the people who were here before didn't want because they're not voting for it.
Can you demonstrate for me that the only reason that California was blue was because of immigration?
Sure.
And even if it was immigration, right? These people were American citizens. Would you deny them their right to vote?
How do foreigners have a right?
They're not foreigners. They're naturalized citizens of the United States.
Oh, the immigrants who are already here? I'm not trying to deny anybody who's already here anything.
Then why are we even talking about this?
People. We're trying to stop taking in more people so that they'll already be here and we don't take rights away.
So what you're arguing for here is that we should not bring in citizens from, or we shouldn't bring in any immigrants from other places in the world because they might vote against the political party that you want? That seems like it's a little bit agenda-based, buddy.
It's not about the political party. It's about that the people who are
Why do we care?
the people
You can't demonstrate. You can't demonstrate because these parties that they're voting for.
Am I allowed to answer your question, or are you going to answer it for yourself?
I'm trying to demonstrate to you why.
Yourself.
No, I'm going to answer. I'm going to tell you why I don't understand. Right? Okay, because these are political parties that are already in the United States, right? And if people want to come over into the United States, and they all decided to vote for one party or the other, right? These people they gained their citizenship, they gained their right to vote, right? That party was already in the United States, so why do you care?
Sure. Are you aware that there are, nationalist and fascist parties in a lot of countries that exist already and are political parties? What if there was a mass wave of immigrants who wanted a nationalist, fascist, or monarchist movement, and all of a sudden they made that the New Deal in a country just by becoming the majority of the people? Is that something you'd be okay with? And then the native population doesn't want fascism. They're against it. They would vote against it, but they're outnumbered now because of immigration. Is that something you'd support?
I'm confused. Are you saying that in your hypothetical, there is a group of people that all immigrate to the United States all at once with so many numbers that they effectively create a voting bloc that is so unbelievably powerful that it outvotes everyone that was already in the United States?
Sure, yeah. Let's say that China decides to send as many immigrants as they possibly can to America, or Russia. Let's take Russia and call them fascists. I don't know, just for hypothetical. And they want to send, as a part of their campaign, as many people here to change the votes as they can for a system which they would like better. See how that could present a problem to the people who are already here and voting certain ways?
How? That could present a problem. That could present a problem, but you're not demonstrating to me how our immigration policy now is doing that.
It's because the people who are immigrating from Latin America specifically are all voting in one direction, and that's why
you realize that the people that are coming here. You realize that the people that are coming here from south of the border are an incredibly conservative people, and they would probably vote with the Republican Party if the Republican Party wasn't so virulently racist towards them.
I'm not sure that's the case at all. And then
100%.
See, I wouldn't call the Republican Party racist at all. You've got.
I mean, we can agree to disagree, but the way that
the Democrats are the real racists, and all of that stuff. It's everybody.
I mean, even if we were to go past that, why would a population of people that are all incredibly, incredibly conservative that probably would vote for the Republican Party, right? Why would they vote against their interests?
Would you say they would vote for the Republican Party?
Because they're conservative. They're socially conservative.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I would say, even regardless, I would say it is not up to the American people who are already here to pander to foreigners for their votes in order to retain political control over their own nation.
If a political party wants to pander to any group of people, that's their right.
Foreigners to foreigners. So you're
not
saying
to foreigners, to immigrants.
Well, no, that's well. I mean, again, immigrants are foreigners until they're legalized, right?
Right, but they can't vote until they're naturalized. So what does this argument matter?
Foreigners, and then you give them all amnesty, and then say they're immigrants. That's the game? Is that what we're doing here?
I'm sorry. Can you say that again?
So people come in as foreigners. And then they're given amnesty, and then they're all citizens. And you say, well, you can't take their rights away, and you just aren't pandering to them well enough. And it's to the people who were already here, to the African American community, the white American community, the Hispanic American community. A lot of these people, they see these changes happening, and they see that this is what's happening, and they say, you know what, that's enough of that.
I really like this public that you're constructing here, this false public that you're constructing, this hypothetical world, right? But again, number one, if we were to hold on, I keep on asking you over and over and over. You have not answered this question whatsoever. What about our current policy that we've had for the past 60 years, right? What about our immigration policy has can be proven to have damaged our society? You keep on appealing to something that might happen possibly in the future in some hypothetical world. I'm asking you concretely right now, what about our immigration policy has harmed the United States?
Yeah, I would say that if you look at the racial tensions in the United States, if you
But those
look
racial
at,
tensions are between people that have been here for much longer than any amount of time that then would be adequate for them to assimilate into our culture. It's not cultural differences there that is the problem for the racial tensions.
well, okay, well, I mean, so that's something that I would largely dispute as well, just because racial tensions between all of the groups are higher right now and escalated. However, the bigger issue is the demographic replacement of the native-born Americans, the people who are already here, black, white, Hispanic, whatever. But
you haven't demonstrated why that's a bad thing either. You keep on.
Okay, so that's
it's
so where we're
recursive.
at.
You're going in circles, buddy. Ouroboros.
No. This is actually really good. So where we've landed now is that you don't believe that it's bad for the native-born Americans, the multi-generational Americans, to die out and be replaced. Would you agree with that? You don't think that's bad?
That's pretty nice.
If people don't want to get into relationships and have children, I don't care. That's up to them. That is their human right to do.
This is the question you haven't answered several times. Do you think that that's bad or not? Or
no.
good? Is it good or bad?
It's morally
if the people
neutral.
die
It's
out?
neutral.
Okay, see, this is and just for the audience's sake, this is what America First is all about. We care about American families. We care about the American people. We don't want you to die out. We want you to have families and children and to be happy and to continue your nation prosperously. Even if there's a certain percentage of economic hit to the GDP, to preserve your families and your people, that's what the America First movement cares about. And it seems like my opponent here, Sunsoul, he doesn't really
saying they're
care
going to
about
die
that.
out as if people are going to kill them.
No. They're going to die out as in they're not going to exist anymore by virtue of the fact simply.
You don't know that. You're assuming
children.
that based off of current trends, but you don't know if that's definitely going to happen.
Sure. So if nothing changes, that's what'll happen.
If nothing changes is doing a lot of legwork for your argument there. You realize that, right?
Well, that's why we're
your entire argument hinges on the fact that given current trends, the American population that is natural, that has been here for generations is possibly going to die out, and therefore we have to cease all immigration and propagandize everyone to so that we can maintain our population, instead of simply just saying, hey, we can do both of these things at once. Maybe on one hand, we tell people, hey, maybe having a family is a good thing, and incentivizing that while not ourselves economically and accepting people from other countries into our nation, this great melting pot that we call America.
Yeah. Again,
why can't we do both? How about that? Can we meet in the middle there? Can we do both?
Well, I would say that's definitely a step in the right direction. If we can, at the very least, begin promoting, if we can agree to promote families and children for the native-born Americans who are already here, that would represent a significant step forward in this conversation. If that's something we can all agree on.
I'm sorry. I was looking at something on my notes here. Can you repeat that last part again?
Yeah, I'd say that's something that we could probably agree on, that at the very least, that would be moving the ball forward in the right direction, not moving forward in a general direction, which we won't say is good or bad. It's moving in the right direction to promote families, to promote children for the American people who are already here so that they don't end up dying out. We need to bring about some change in order for what I said to not take place, correct?
Sure, right, but you haven't adequately expressed why it has to be anti-immigration. All right.
Yeah, and so the reason for that is because the wages, especially in the short term, would skyrocket if we didn't have mass immigration happening right now.
Why is that a good thing?
And so to continue to expand infinitely, why are wages rising for the American working class a good thing? I think anyone listening can answer that question.
Yeah, that in isolation sounds really great, right? But what does that mean? If it's due to a lack of labor as a resource.
It's not a lack of labor. It's not a lack of labor.
That's literally what it is. Hold on. What you said was just so incredibly stupid, I can't let it fly. All right, I'm going to go ahead and talk now. All right, because if you're implying that the only way for us to in the short term help people's wages increase is to make sure that we have less people in this country coming in, so that the natural born, what you were implying, right?
That was a way.
Huh?
I said it was a way.
A way, right? But you're implying that this thing would be a good thing. But you're looking at just the wages increasing in isolation is incredibly stupid, because just because there are increases in wages doesn't mean that down the supply chain that the prices aren't going to skyrocket along with them.
It's so you're absolutely right. You know, the price of tomatoes would rise if people weren't only getting paid 25 cents an hour to pick them.
Nobody's getting paid 25 cents an hour.
I would advocate for that.
Outside of illegal immigrants, who, if we were to get them, and if we give them amnesty, then they would be able to pay into the tax system, huh?
You know, $6 an hour, whatever you would want to call it.
What is the minimum wage in the United States?
But $7.20, I don't know, man. Whatever it is.
$7.25. All right. I just want to make sure you knew that.
The wages would be higher, okay?
Right, and then it would raise the price of tomatoes, or of any of these different commodities, whether it's tomatoes or whether it's milk or a bag of bread.
Americans being paid a living wage is more important than the prices of commodity goods, man.
If you can't afford those things after your wages increase, then it's useless.
You can't afford them without a living wage in the first place, man. I don't
know how. So that's why we should try to fix our economy, right? By increasing immigration and make sure we have more labor in our country as a resource.
I just have to say, it's really fascinating to me that, you know, when I was growing up, it was the left was very obviously the party of the working class. And now I'm talking to a leftist, a self-proclaimed socialist or communist who's to essentially saying
I did not say I was a communist. Hold your horses there, buddy. All right. I understand what you're saying, right? That the idea that I'm saying that wages possibly rising could be bad. Oh my gosh! But if I made it to where the minimum wage in this country was $20 an hour, but it increased prices 500%, right? And it didn't help anybody, right? And they were spending all of their money on the exact same things. Just because they're making $20 an hour doesn't mean that we're increasing their quality of life whatsoever. Right?
Okay, so for the record, you're against raising the minimum wage?
Minimum wage is a whole other conversation.
Well, not exactly, because what we're talking about is raising the wages through supply and demand. It's exactly the same conversation. So I don't know why you would be against raising wages in the first place. This is very confusing to me talking to
minimum wage is one of those things that is a stopgap in terms of making sure that people get paid well. I like the idea of unionizing people so that they can argue for their wages way more, right? And increasing social spending such that people are able to be taken care of, whether their pay is $7.25 an hour or $25 an hour.
Okay. So I'd just like to hear your take on this, on the immigration wages issue. How would you say supply and demand would affect, immigration versus wages?
I'm sorry? Supply and demand in terms of immigration?
Yeah, in terms of the working population versus wages for jobs.
Right. So, this is like as simply as I can put it. If there's more labor, people can hire people, right?
And they're paid less, right?
Well,
if
right.
There's more
but
labor.
That does, right. Okay. But you're looking at that one part of the equation in isolation and not thinking about how that could decrease the price of commodities, such that if they say we were able to get rid of the minimum wage, right? And then we get rid of the minimum wage, and then people get into this country and everyone's getting paid 25 cents an hour. But our economic output is such that it costs a quarter of a cent for rent every month because everyone is able to is so economically productive.
So would
that be a bad thing?
So we're pro 25 cents an hour minimum wage.
No,
now,
I'm giving you an extreme hypothetical to see if you understand anything about economics.
Well, it sounds like you've just inverted the entire thing to now say that lowering the wages is what's better, right?
No, I was giving you a hypothetical in which if people were paid less, but the price of hold on,
okay,
chill,
sorry,
right? Listen.
I think I get you.
Okay, can you explain it back to me?
Yeah, I think I get you. If there was a hypothetical where we lowered the wages and it reduced the cost of commodities, you'd argue that's a net good. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but of course it would have to be proportional to a degree. It would have to make sure
Right.
that the price of goods is falling faster than people's wages.
Okay, yeah. So if that's how the math worked out, then I would say that decreasing wages would be the best thing ever, right? Let's pay everybody nothing essentially, and everything can be free.
Right, but that's
But
the
it just
entire
turns
thing
out
about
that's not
economics
how
that
things
you're
play out.
ignoring, right? Is that just because you're just saying just because we increase people's wages, that's a good thing, but it might cause inflation like 6,000%, and even though people are getting a 50% increase in their wages, right? Say we go from 7.25, right, to a $11 an hour minimum wage, but then prices go up 6,000%, right? Do you think that's helping anybody?
Well, so I'll give you a counter hypothetical. If wages increase for people, consumer prices can also go down if consumer spending goes up, right?
It's possible, right? But you would still have to demonstrate why that would happen in this hypothetical world that you're saying that our consumer prices would go down without any kind of labor.
Well, because of supply and demand, the consumer prices would go down
Because of
because
supply
there
and
are
demand?
more people buying things.
Well, who would be
yeah, it
producing the
means
goods? That's the problem. If everyone's buying everything up, the demand is up, but the supply is low, so the prices would go up because there's no labor to fill in the gap to create more supply.
the labor is. I mean, what?
So
Can
you don't
repeat
have
that
enough
again?
labor to create supply for the demand that is now increased because people have more spending power, right? Thus, prices go up.
No.
Why did you get into a conversation about basic supply and demand if you don't know how to do basic addition and subtraction?
Yeah, but what you said is just patently false.
How?
Because we have the supply of labor in this scenario.
Why?
It's because because we have the labor already here in America. We have the people already here. It's not like we need to bring in immigrants in order to get the labor. It's just it is. We do have labor. We have the people who are willing to work.
What is
We just
the
need to
structural?
pay them.
What do you think that the unemployment rate is showing? Not right now, because obviously we're in like a weird place because of
Right,
coronavirus,
right.
right? But if we were to look at like say 2015, do you think that we have so much labor available to us that we just need to shut down immigration?
Yeah, I would say that relatively
With our like
the
what,
unemployment
like
rate is
4 or
is relative-
5%?
relatively low, regardless, excluding right now crazy circumstances.
Yeah.
I'd say that the unemployment rate is relatively low, and that it's bringing in mass immigration, which is distorting the wages, disrupting the
Wait.
economics in the short term.
Wait.
changing
You're
culture,
jumping ahead. I need you to
demographics.
answer that question. Hold on. You're
Okay.
jumping ahead. All right. So the unemployment rate is low, which means there's not a lot of people that are outside of the workforce. So you're saying that we do have the labor for our workforce for us to shut off immigration completely, even though we've had generally stable unemployment over the past 60 years, right?
Okay.
And so your argument is that we have so much unemployment, so much labor at our disposal that we could shut off immigration and it be fine for our economy. But we don't, because the unemployment rate has been around the same place for a very long time. We haven't had a Great Depression where there's like 25% of the population that is out of the workforce.
I'm not sure what you're saying exactly. It seems
What I'm
like you're
saying is
arguing my
you
point.
are incredibly stupid.
Oh,
Like I don't
thanks,
know
man.
how
Having such a
much
simple
easier I can
conversation.
explain this. There's less people than you think there
it's
are
funny,
that are
when I
available.
called
No, hold
from
on
the
really quick.
outset of this
You keep on
conversation
saying
that
you
you
keep
brought
on
up-
going around in circles, so this is incredibly boring. You keep on
Don't
saying
call
things
us
like
racist.
we have
You're
enough
white
people. Hold on
You've
really
been
quick.
doing this since the
I
very
didn't say
beginning.
anything about racism right
I
here.
have no obligation to listen to you sit here and insult me when I've been absolutely civil with you the entire time.
No,
I've
you have been
absolutely,
insulting me by going around in the same arguments over and over and over and over and not understanding a goddamn thing about what you're talking about. This is
I
incredibly
think everyone
fucking.
can see who's bringing facts and data here, and who's arguing in the
Yeah, the guy that doesn't know
interest of
basic
the
addition
American
threw
people,
one link at
and
me
who's
and
bringing
didn't know.
personal
The
attacks
guy that had
humanity
one
in this
link to throw at
conversation.
me that with a study that didn't actually support your argument. is the guy that
Actually,
knows
it
what
did.
he's talking about. Sure.
It actually exactly supported my argument, because what I'm talking about is short-term mass immigration. And that's something
Right.
that you have yet to discuss. You have yet to
But you
address.
haven't been able to.
Going in circles with word games about, you know, what's going on, about why do you asked me why it's bad that the people here are dying. I don't understand, like, and you're calling me stupid. I've been incredibly civil when you're you know, not able to use your brain on the most basic you know, fundamental facts of reality, which is that if
You're
your
right, I was
family
being
is
mean.
dying, it's a bad thing. If your nation is dying, it's a bad thing. If your extended
Wait,
family
my nation
is
isn't dying,
it's a bad
though.
thing. Your neighbor is dying.
My nation
it's
isn't
a bad
dying.
Thing.
What are you talking about? My nation isn't dying.
The people are not meeting their replacement rates. That means that unless something changes, they will die out. I've had to say this about 10 times.
Right, and I didn't disagree with that,
you're
right?
The one calling
but you're
me
saying,
stupid.
but no, but like we keep on coming back to this point where we don't disagree. If people don't meet the replacement rate, there's going to be no more of those people in this country.
But
you
think
can't
that that's
demonstrate
okay.
to me. You
You think that's a
can't
good
demonstrate to me the core of this argument is you can't demonstrate to me that using immigration to help supplement our population is a bad thing. You keep on going around things, but we get down to the economic things.
The reason
on the
why
most
that's a
baseline
bad thing, I've
things.
said it over and over again, man.
Yeah.
I've said it over and over again. The reason why that's a bad thing is because it's putting a Band-Aid on an open wound, which is gushing blood, man. It's our country is dying. Our nation's people are not having children anymore, and there won't be enough soon. There won't be any soon.
So your argument is if it's a Band-Aid, right?
Hold on, give me a second here.
Yeah.
Your solution to that is to just replace them with immigrants from other places. Anyone who has a family here who is thinking about, you know, anyone who's a grandparent who's thinking about their grandchildren and the future of this nation, who's, you know, contributed and they want to leave something for their children, who's hearing this right now from you, has got to be shocked and appalled. Absolutely. There's no way that anyone in their right mind is listening to this and hearing that you're okay with replacing the native population who is dying out with immigrants, and you don't see a problem with that. You need studies to figure it out. I mean, anybody with half a brain could tell this, man. It's obvious
but
that
like
that's
all
a bad
that, like
thing, and that we should
studies
stop
point
that
us
from
towards
happening.
things that we can't see directly with our eyes because they're too large, right? Like immigration, you can't see with your eyes what the effects of immigration is on a nationwide scale. So studies are really important, right? And all the studies point towards my argument that immigration is like a good thing, right? And that your idea,
economically,
economically,
well, actually, the studies are out in
And
the long term.
hold on. I just let you go on a little scree, right?
Go ahead.
Like, yeah, right. So like. You're saying that you're all for America first, right? You're all for America first. I want what's best for the United States. I want what's best for our people, right? Well, what's best for our people isn't allowing them to, you know, starve because we don't want to bring in immigrants from other countries into our already melting pot country, right?
That nobody's going to be starving without mass immigration. They weren't starving in the 60s, man.
Right, but given your worldview, if we're having some kind of replacement rate emergency, right, where we're going to die out in one generation, right, we probably need to supplement our population somehow. Right?
Yeah, and I would say we should do that with families. We should stop the people from dying immediately.
But you can't demonstrate to me why that's the only way to do it.
Well, the reason why we disagree here is because, to me, it's important that the people who are already here, the families who are already here, continue to exist. And so that's the entire issue. So
what do you mean it's important that they continue to exist? You're implying that there's some kind of outside, right? They're dying out, right?
Yes, they're not having families. They won't exist anymore. No one's killing that. I'm not saying this is intentional or anything like that. But the fact is, they will not exist in the future if they don't have babies, right?
So if they care about that, then they should start having children, right?
What I'm saying is that I care about that, and I think that
I care about these people too. I think that they should have as many kids as they want or as few kids as they want.
Okay, now
at the
follow
same time,
me here. It's going to be a big jump for you, but so because that's a bad thing, we should combat that, and any economic solution.
Why are they mutually exclusive?
Towards the larger economy doesn't solve that problem. And
you're not. You keep on saying this like they're mutually exclusive, but you can do both at the same time. Why is it allowing immigration to happen hurting your idea of moving it towards this, like, this propaganda.
So I would say marriage. I wouldn't
Sure,
categorize
marriage,
it like that
whatever
at
it
all.
is, right?
Right, because the reason is because if we increase the birth rates to back to normal and then continue with mass immigration, wages will fall in the short term massively. And that'll happen before there's any sort of balancing out in the consumer prices, anything like that. We'll have major issues economically, especially.
Do you know what but again, you keep on saying this thing, like, you keep on saying this thing where we're talking about like a 2% dip in wages for the high school dropout level of education, right? For those kinds of people in the workforce, and that could be offset by social programs. So what's the problem?
So we are going to actually get into the Q&A. Right.
Well, welcome. For people that are new, if you're watching on YouTube or if you're watching on Kick, I'm Sansol. I am a political science student. I like to talk about politics. I like to argue about politics. We talk about all sorts of fun things on here, like drama and politics. And I like to argue with people in chat about a lot of different things. Like, comment, and subscribe. I don't like to shill also.